Welcome to the Belonging Project podcast. This is Fiorenza and I'm your host. The purpose of this podcast is to bring voices together to talk about belonging. Through inspiring real-life conversations, we explore how belonging can show up in so many different ways, what it feels like to belong, and the impact of truly belonging. Each episode will offer you inspiration and practical strategies to find your true voice in your life and as a leader. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome to the Belonging Project podcast. Today I'm joined by Grace Fogarty. Grace is a pitch expert, and today we will be talking about pitching and ways in which it's interlinking with our sense of belonging. As a business owner and freelancer, pitching is a skill that you need. I certainly agree with that. And if you're working in an organization, that's very much a skill you need as well, be it to pitch for a new idea, a promotion, and so on. Grace, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
I cannot wait to dive into our topic today. So, perhaps we can start with a little bit about your own journey. I would love to know what brought you to develop your expertise on pitching.
Yeah, sure. So I've always worked in learning and development, training, events, workshop facilitation. So I started out about 12 years ago doing those kinds of roles in the charity sector. Spent 4 or 5 years in charities, and then I moved into the corporate world. I worked for a tiny consultancy, and then I worked for a big global consultancy. But no matter what role I was doing, I was always designing and delivering training and really helping people to develop their professional skills. And so it's something that I've always been very passionate about. But when I was at the global consultancy, I was in a really high pressure environment and, really intense workload. And the work itself wasn't necessarily, it was a bit more about business events and collaboration and less about personal development. So there was a bit of a mismatch with what I'm motivated by. And I ended up burning out while I was there and took 3 months off work. And during that time, it gave me that space to really think, what am I doing with my life? And more importantly, what do I want to be doing with my life? Because, I'm clearly not getting it quite right at the moment. And so that experience really led me down the path of thinking about working for myself. And I went back to that job, but handed in my notice at the end of 2022 and decided to go self-employed. And I started out as a freelance trainer, delivering workshops still on any professional development skill like teamworking, communication, creativity. And then over the first year, I decided actually I really want to focus in on presentation skills because that's kind of the skill I've always enjoyed. I love helping people feel confident in themselves. And outside of the work that I do, I'm also an actor, a script writer. I've done stand-up comedy and improv. And so there's a lot of that experience I have to bring into the training that I do. At the time I was working with companies, going in and running workshops, but I was always networking and meeting lots of other business owners. And I realized that actually in the world of small business owners, there is a huge need for being able to present yourself with confidence, to communicate clearly, to pitch your business. And so last year I decided to change or kind of add to what I was offering and start working more directly one-to-one with small business owners and focus in on actually how can they create and deliver a really good business pitch. And the uptake has been incredible. There's just so many people that have come to me that I've been able to help with pitching and confidence building. And so now when I set up my business last year, my limited company, now really the main focus of what I do is supporting other business owners to really pitch with confidence.
And that's so important to do when you're a business owner, for sure. And I'm so happy that you're doing that work and supporting others on this journey. So I often hear coaching clients and other freelancers and business owners mention how uncomfortable it feels to pitch And I don't know, is that something that you hear as well? I'm assuming so, but let's confirm.
All the time, all the time. And actually, what was funny is when I started networking, I would say to people, oh, I'm a presentation skills trainer. And I would always have at least one person, in the chat or coming up to me afterwards and being like, oh my God, I really need your help. I hate presenting. I hate pitching. Like, yeah, it's probably one of the most common things that people say to me.
Right. So that's reassuring. I'm sure that many listeners will be thrilled to hear this. What would be, do you have go-to tools, go-to strategies to help people get started on feeling more empowered, feeling more confident in breaking out of their shells?
Yeah, so in my mind, if you think about a business pitch, it's really made up of like three components of what makes you successful when you're pitching. One part of it is what you say. So really starting to get clear on who it is that you want to attract in your pitch so that you can tailor your message. One of the things I see people really struggle with is in their pitch, they try to appeal to everybody. But actually, the more people you try to appeal with, the more generic your pitch ends up sounding. And so the less impact it has because your message becomes unclear. So when you think about what you're saying, start off with really being clear on who is the person I want to attract so that you can tailor your language and what you say to suit that audience. The next component of it is how you say it. So this is all about the delivery style. I always recommend to people, if you're going to pitch, particularly if it's in a meeting where you are face to face with people and you get the opportunity to stand up, try as best as you can to not have to read from your notes. I see people all the time reading their pitch like this on their phone or like reading from a piece of paper because it's, it makes someone feel comfortable. But if you can invest the time beforehand to practice and learn your notes, it just completely frees you up to make eye contact with people, to hold yourself more confidently because you're not distracted with paper and things. And that makes a big difference straight away to how people connect with you. So really taking your preparation time seriously and investing in learning your message off by heart it's a game changer. So that's what you say and how you say it. And then I really believe that ultimately your ability to pitch is underpinned by your mindset and your belief in what you do. Because you can learn how to write a great pitch. You can learn how to use your body language. You can learn all of those things. But if in your mind you still don't believe in what you do and the value you have to offer, it will come across in the way you communicate. So really also working on your mindset, identifying those negative or limiting beliefs you have and replacing them with more positive, motivating thoughts as a starting point helps to underpin everything. So the three different parts are really important to work on.
Love it. So the prep is quite key, right?
Very key. Yes.
Yeah. And the prep is impacting our delivery of the message itself. It's impacting our mindset, right? We could do some mindset work ahead so that we feel more confident when we are going to pitch, on the day we are going to pitch. And I absolutely loved what you said about, if you're able to stand up and, do so. I'm a big believer that the posture that you're having, even just the openness of your chest, can give you more confidence. And if you're not able to have that openness, it can actually feel quite restrictive. And then you are going back into that shell, if that makes sense. I love the superwoman posture, strategy ahead of a big talk, or just if you have to do an intervention you have to say something in a meeting, really opening that chest up. I love it. Right. And how do you see the interlink between networking and pitching?
I think so. The networking that I've done as a business owner and when I was a freelancer, a lot of the networking groups that I've been a part of, the meetings I've been to, follow quite a similar structure where every meeting at the beginning starts with everyone having to give your 60-second pitch. So that's really how I came to like discover that actually, there are a lot of networking groups that follow that format and they've got a lot of people in them and everyone has to do it. And what I discovered through my own journey is that 60-second pitch, if you can learn how to use that to your advantage, networking becomes a game changer, like to growing your business. Because I think there's this conception, networking is so important. If you run a business, if you're a sole trader, you're a freelancer, meeting people, getting out there, not being alone is really, really, really important for lots of reasons. But it can become quite expensive and it can take up a lot of time if you're not using those opportunities as a way to get the opportunities or find the clients that you need in order to grow. And actually, I've been on my own journey of really understanding how I can use my 60-second pitch to very clearly communicate to people what it is that I have to offer, how it is I can help them, and what they can do if they want to take me up on my offer or if they want to have a conversation with me. And that everything I've learned in my own pitching strategy is now what I teach my clients, because I have seen for myself and now my clients as well, that when you know how to use your pitch properly when you networking doesn't need to be a slow burn. Networking can genuinely be a way of bringing leads into your business every single month, but you have to know how to use those 60 seconds to your advantage. And I think that's where people don't necessarily see that, or they don't know how to, and can miss out on those opportunities.
Yeah. And I guess with that format, it could feel quite intense to many because it's one after the other, right? You go next, and all that. How could you use that type of format, or rather, how could you not let that type of format step over your authentic voice?
Well, that's a lovely question. And your step over your authentic voice. Well, I think certainly the point that we were just talking about, preparation, is key. I think like you've got to take it seriously, right? If you are going into one of those environments, think about what you are there to promote, but also think about what's in it for you personally. Like, it doesn't need to be scary. It can be a way of you just showing people who you are and bringing your personality and what you're like. So I think thinking beforehand, what do I really want to get across to people about who I am and what my business has to offer is part of it. Absolutely preparing your pitch so that you're not winging it. You know what you want to say, because that will help build your confidence and your conviction. And then in the actual moment, I was actually working with one of my one-to-one clients on this recently, because she found, and I think this is really common, she could do the preparation and she knew how to like prepare before a meeting, but when she was in that environment, when they're calling the names and people are sharing one by one, that is when her nerves would get the better of her. So no matter how much preparation she'd do, when she stood up, she would, her voice would go and she would panic and she wasn't able to be authentic. And so something that I've worked with her on is actually when you are listening to other people, doing things like some deep breathing, like just breathing in and then extending your out breath. Like you said, I loved your point about your posture, like sitting with a really nice, positive, open posture, listening to what people are saying rather than starting to compare yourself, which I think is something we all, we can all be guilty of. But really like giving yourself physically, like creating this kind of oasis of calm within yourself so that when your name gets called, you are in control. And when you start to speak, smile at everybody, pause, take a breath, stand up, take up space. That will give everyone a moment to engage with you, but it also gives you a moment to not get caught up in the nerves and the flustered feeling. And that is really staying calm and grounded is what will help you to be your most authentic self in those high pressure situations. When your name gets called, you are in control. And when you start to speak, smile at everybody, pause, take a breath, stand up, take up space. That will give everyone a moment to engage with you, but it also gives you a moment to not get caught up in the nerves and the flustered feeling. And that is really staying calm and grounded is what will help you to be your most authentic self in those high pressure situations.
Really great tips. Thank you so much, Grace. One thought that's coming up is how much research or thoughts would you say we need to give into what networking groups we are going to, or just what groups we want to get involved with and promote our businesses, or what we do and all that. Does that matter? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say it absolutely does matter. And there's a few different ways that you can look at it. So if you are networking because you want to grow your business, like you are networking because you want and you need clients, again, it comes back to being really clear on who it is that you want to attract, and like knowing things like what budget someone might need to invest in your services, or what kind of profession are they in, or what are some of the biggest struggles that they have that your business helps to solve. If you can start getting really clear on that, use that to inform which networking group you join. And you can visit lots of networking groups without having to pay a fee. So I visited it must have been about 10 groups before I joined one to become as a member. And I visited my group twice before I committed. So I'd highly recommend, when you have a sense of who you want to attract, visit as many groups as you can before you make your decision. If you want to network because you really want the support and you want to learn from people and you want to be around people that are going to help you, that you're maybe going to get education and inspiration from, and that's really the main purpose of networking, then I think that sometimes that might be the same people as the clients you want to work with, but maybe it's a different group of people. Like, this is I'm at a point in my business now where I'm starting to think like, I'd love to scale my business, right? I'd like to take it to up 5 levels, let's say, right? Like, not immediately, but like, that's where I'd love to be in a few years' time. So I'm starting to think like, I actually really want to be in the room with people that are already doing that whose businesses are at the level that I want to get to, because if I know if I surround myself with those people, I will learn so much and get so much inspiration from them. So at the moment, I'm actually thinking about joining another networking group, not to look for clients, but to feed my own inspiration and education. And when I'm in those meetings versus when I'm in a networking meeting, when I know I'm speaking to people that could be my potential clients, what I say and how I interact with those groups might be a little bit different. I'm not going to be a different person. I'll be me in both groups, but I know that I'll be looking for different things from each group of people. So I definitely think it's worth reflecting on what it is that you want to get. And maybe you want support and you want clients, and that's great. But again, just really thinking about, what are those types of people? How do you want to feel when you leave a networking meeting? Do you want to feel do you want to feel uplifted, inspired? Do you want to feel like you've got a list of things to research? I think doing that thinking and then visiting is really, really key to making the most of it.
That's such a great point. So if you were to join a networking group, because your main objective is to feel inspired from the group and to learn, right? How does that change your pitch, and should it change your pitch?
I don't think. Yeah, great question. So I think that you have to change, you need to change your pitch to some degree every time you network to keep it fresh based on what it is that you're promoting and what your focus is. But I do think that it comes back to how you want to position yourself in the room. So, for example, one month I might create a pitch that I do in all my networking meetings that is primarily about a free masterclass I've got coming up, right? Like, I really want to raise awareness. I want people to come to the masterclass. So I would create a pitch that is just about that. But if I wanted to be in a group where I was inspired by people, I would want to be thinking more about, I would maybe still talk about the free masterclass if I wanted those people in the room, but I might also be more thinking about, how can I create a pitch that demonstrates I'm a knowledge expert in pitching? Is there a story I can share, maybe a client story, or is there an anecdote I can share, or is there something creative I could talk about that helps people to think about pitching differently, and in return shows people that I am an expert in what I do? It's a different outcome, and maybe the same pitch works in 2 different rooms, but I like to just think about, what impression do I want to make on those people in the room?
Many of our listeners are working in an organization, and I wanted to ask you, Grace, how important is it to know how to pitch and to pitch ourselves when we work in an org?
Yeah, so I also work with companies, like I go into teams and run workshops on pitching and presenting. So it is really, really important, just as important as if you're a small business owner. And I think that It's important. I mean, it's important because ultimately, even if you work in an organization, often you are still trying to promote or sell or position what your organization does to your client, whether that is to win some work or it's to deepen a client relationship, build trust. How you pitch and present yourself is really important. And actually, the three things that I mentioned earlier still apply. So, what you say, how you say it, and your mindset. And if you're pitching for an organization, what you say, again, like really, I think that people often, and this goes across the board for organizations and small business owners, people often in a pitch focus on the how something works. So if you're in an organization, spending lots of time on how a tech, how a tech solution works or how your service works or whatever, how your product works, that is often where I see people invest too much time in a pitch. And so when you think about what you say, instead of talking about the how, flip the focus and really talk about the why and the benefits, because ultimately what your audience, whether that's a client or a potential client, the question that they are asking themselves is, what is in it for me? How is this going to help me? How is this going to help me address my problem? How is this going to help me grow, get better, whatever it is that you're helping? The question is always the same. So if you're pitching in an organization and you're designing your pitch, focusing on the client, the why, and less on the how is a really good place to start. And then the things that we mentioned earlier, the body language, how you hold yourself, how you own the room, working on your mindset, feeling confident when you enter, all of those things are just as important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those examples and again, great tips and strategies that you've given us. Now I wanted to perhaps come back on something you've mentioned. You've mentioned that you're also an actor. And I know you're working on writing a show, if I'm not mistaken. I would love to perhaps just touch on that a little bit, if that's okay, and also how perhaps it comes into play in what you do.
Yeah, so I've always, since I've been working outside of work, when I first moved to London like 11 years ago, I just got really into learning about acting and performance outside of work. And so I've done lots of different kind of courses and performances and things in musical theatre, improvisation. I did stand-up comedy a couple of years ago for about a year. And I really, and then I found acting and script writing. And I love that creative process. I love kind of learning a character. I love writing stories. I like sharing that. And actually, that was one of the biggest drivers for me working for myself and leaving behind my full-time job, because I'd already started work on my idea for a one-woman show. And my job was just taking away all my time and energy, and it wasn't leaving me with the time I needed to invest in it. So having the time to invest in kind of making theatre is a huge priority for me. And in the first year that I worked for myself, I also did a foundation course at drama school in acting and theatre making, which was incredible, like amazing experience. And now I'm about to start rehearsing my one woman show that's coming up, which is super exciting. But I really believe that everyone can benefit from the lessons you learn as a performer. And I also really believe that you do not have to, and you should not have to go to drama school or be an actor or a comedian in order to learn those things. So in the workshops that I deliver, in any training that I deliver, I bring in the techniques that I've learned through my training, through my performance background. And the same for script writing as well, because I just think they are so applicable when we're talking about presenting ourselves and pitching. And so, yeah, I think there's such a connection. So I really try to bring those lessons to everyone I work with.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for mentioning this. I've done some acting courses as well, and I think it's been, years, but I really got a big positive impact on my confidence in terms of standing in front of people, standing on a stage, saying a few words, and even if the delivery isn't great, but at least you get into the practice and you get to be more comfortable in taking that space as well. Yeah. Right. Grace, how could we get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yes, so find me on LinkedIn, Grace Fogarty on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram. I'm Present with Grace on Instagram. So yeah, please do connect with me on there. I'm often sharing tips and advice. I'm going to be starting to do more video content soon as well. So that's the place, the best places to find me.
Fantastic. And I'll include those in the show notes. And I think you have a group program coming up as well.
I do. So I run a group program called Sell in 60 for business owners, where it's an 8-week program. Over those 8 weeks, I talk through my sell to the room pitch framework. So you learn how to do the things we've been talking about today, how to tailor your message to your audience, how to create a really clear structure for your pitch, and then how to deliver it with confidence. And each week, one week there's a workshop, and then one week there's a rehearsal room. And that's space for people to come and to actually practice their pitch in a safe environment before they get out into the networking environment. So it's a really nice space, supportive, safe space.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that a link to that is included in the show notes. Thank you so much, Grace. It's been brilliant to have this conversation with you. I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, thank you so much, Fiorenza. I've really enjoyed it too. It's been a pleasure to be here. So thanks for the invite.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and share this episode with your friends and network. As an independent podcaster, your reviews and engagement really supports the podcast. We also stream on Substack now, where you can join in for extra content and conversations on today's topic and more. See you soon.